Hey guys, what it do? I'm back this time with another crazy theory, and I need y'all to just bear with me. Listen, I already made a video admitting that I think Gojo's probably dead. He's probably out of the story, needed, necessary for the story to move forward, yada yada yada. But I don't want to just make obvious, clear videos about shit that we know are likely to happen, right? I want to have fun with it and talk about things that potentially could happen since Gege's writing style really allows for a lot of open-endedness and a lot of things to be true, despite what we showcased. And one of the main things I want to talk about is, I mentioned in my other video, is how the winner was not announced. And also there was no confirmation of death. But listen, you can say Nobara didn't have a confirmation of death. You can say what's his name? Ryu. Ryu didn't have a confirmation of death. You can say there's a bunch of people that you can say didn't have a conversation, freaking conversation. Am I tripping? There's a bunch of people you could say that it didn't showcase. It didn't say that a confirmation of death. And there's also, I think, the Yuki fight, I don't think it said winner either, and that I think there's probably a few fights it didn't say winner in. So again, I'm kind of pulling a straws for that one. But in this argument is nothing. It's pulling for that a little bit, but it's more to do with Gojo's six eyes and the limitless ability and his maximum technique. You can say Hollow Purple is maximum technique, which is, I think, fair to say that Hollow Purple is maximum technique since it uses a positive and the attracting and pushing effects and puts those two concepts together to create an impossibility. But I think his six eyes may have its own maximum as well. And I think this may be what will separate Gojo from the rest of all the six eye users in the story. I think that perhaps he may have a time traveling ability where I think he may be able to freeze his body in place, right, in case of injury or whatever, or, serious. If he's in a serious situation, for example, I think he may be able to put himself in a stasis and then eventually reverse his body back to normal, right? Not using reverse cursed energy, but rather reversing the time of his body, right? So that it goes back to its prime condition. And I think this will include his brain. How long this may take, I think, will be subject to, whatever. But I think this will definitely be, well, it's definitely a potential that could happen. I think he might even stay there, his body laid to rest and nobody touching it out of respect. And obviously no curses would go near it because of just the sheer power of his presence when his body wasn't there, kept curses away. So obviously his body actually lying there would obviously scare everything away completely. And I don't think Kenjaku will even consider taking his body because of how powerful Gojo's soul is. And not only his soul, also the six eyes and how that works and the Gojo clan and shit. I don't think Kenjaku will even try it. I think the reason he's been trying to get rid of these guys, like he killed the baby, the six eye user baby. He could have just took over the body, but he did not because I think he knows that the six eye and the fate it has with the world and Tengen and all of those things, I think that surpasses beyond Jujutsu itself, right? Because we know Tengen is one of the reasons why Jujutsu is the way it is in the first place. So I think as a result, Gojo being the connection with Tengen and Tengen being gone and the six eye being linked with fate, I think he, again, above the earth, heaven and earth, I alone am the honored one. Buddha. I think this is his second rebirth, his final rebirth, him coming out of the final cocoon. I think it's potential. Again, it's a potential. Like if you believe he's dead, that's completely fine. I think he's probably dead as well, but I think there are potentials to him being alive. And I just wanted to theorize on that. I wanted to theorize on the possibilities if you were to get Gojo back, the same way I theorized on the possibilities if Gojo was going to win. And prior to that, I basically talked about why Sukuna would more than likely win. So I like to just kind of have conversations that are interesting, and a bit headcanon, sure, whatever, but I think it's not beyond belief, right? If Sukuna can tear through the world itself, why can't Gojo reverse time? You know what I'm saying? Considering Sukuna's power shouldn't be able to tear the world at all, since it's nothing to do with space-time, right? Yet he's tearing through the fabric of space and time because it's cutting, and cutting just it's just that's all it means. It just cuts. So it does no limitation to what it can cut. So it cuts space and time. Gojo, he can stop things from reaching him, right? Because he creates an infinite amount of space between the two objects, right? The six eyes allows him to process data rapidly, right? And his abilities are way more vague than Sukuna's, right? Sukuna's are so straightforward, cut, and so he cuts. Now, obviously, his fire, excuse me, burn. He has all of these things, but they're all very basic concepts. Gojo's concepts are completely beyond that. They're way more abstract, right? So I think only his imagination is his limitation. And the same way Sukuna's imagination on cutting not Gojo, but the space which Gojo occupies, that's what got him the win con. I think him explaining that to Gojo and Gojo smiling, because I think this happens after the whole flashback, and Gojo smiling, I think this showcases that perhaps he may actually have figured it out at that moment. Oh my God, he used a concept and made it into reality. I can use that concept to do way more, because as he stated, Gojo's abilities are way better, right? Like just fundamentally just way better. But Sukuna has had the time, the battle practice, all of these things, all of these advantages, knowing everything that Gojo can do, his whole arsenal. He had all of this knowledge prior to fighting Gojo. Gojo came out blindfolded and pushed him to the brink, right? Now imagine if Gojo knew, now knowing all this knowledge, and you repeat this fight. Gojo would surpass his limit. He by the end of the fight, if we reach to the same conclusion, Gojo would block that cut. He would put his infinity to occupy also the space in which Satoru Gojo occupies. You know what I'm saying? I think that is it. I think that's the potential that his abilities has. I think it showcases here, again, the potential every Jujutsu Sorcerer has if they can go beyond regular concepts, right? And that's what Sukuna did here. He went beyond what was expected of him. And I think that's also what makes him the best sorcerer of all time. But I think is what makes Gojo's potential actually higher than Sukuna. Because considering in how little time and how little battles Gojo has had, right? Sukuna was challenged constantly by top tier fighters constantly. So every time he won, he just kept improving. Gojo was challenged one time, and then he became the absolute strongest dude on earth off of that one time. Just that one time pushed him to just propel them to the fucking moon, right? So imagine if he was in an era where people were constantly pushing him. He would be a bigger calamity than Sukuna ever could be. And I think that's also a part of the narrative being displayed here. You know what I'm saying? Gojo's improvisation, his ability to think on his feet, all of these things are without him being battle hardened. This is with him only have one serious fight in the whole fucking series. Imagine that. That means this guy he was only like 28, 30. He had boundless potential. Right? And Yuta has even higher potential than Gojo. Right? And Hakari potentially also has higher potential than Gojo. And Yuji probably has higher potential than Gojo. And Megumi probably has higher potential. Megumi probably has the lowest potential just because he just ain't improved the same way as everybody else has. I don't know what the hell's wrong with him, bro. Everybody else was flying, bro. Like I don't get it. But I think Gojo let him be a kid up until, because he's a first year. So I guess Gojo let him be a kid, but like surely he had to learn something from living with Gojo. Like, but Gojo's a horrible teacher, so it makes sense. But yeah, so I think that's the case. I really think that there's way more left to explore with his abilities. I don't know if Gege will do this, but I think now that, you know, his editors are forcing him to extend the story or to at least pace it better, I think we may discover something like this. Just don't be surprised. if in a year's time, or however many months' time, or in a few chapters, Gojo stands up and he says you should have aimed for the head, or he says above the heaven and earth, because one of them is the honored one, the other one is the disgraced one. They are the yin and yang. And yes, I know Yuji is the protagonist, right? But I think, narratively speaking, I think it makes sense. Listen, I still think it makes sense for Gojo to be able to win or to be able to return. You know what I'm saying? But then I suppose if he returns, what happens, right? Sukuna will be way too weakened. He may have that OPS attack. And maybe Gojo might have to teleport in order to figure out how to stop that, right? And then, I don't know. See, the thing is with Gege, you can't predict Gege, and that's why I enjoy Jujutsu Kaisen personally. I enjoy that we can't predict where he's gonna go and what he's gonna do, even when the choices seem obvious, because it's him writing. Are uncertain. Like, it should have been clear and obvious that Sukuna has to win, and yet the fan base was so split because Gege isn't super conventional, right? He hasn't really been conventional. So at this point in the story, for every protagonist, they're usually the strongest member of the party, right? If you look at Luffy, he's the strongest member of his party. If you looked at Naruto, during the Ninja War, he was the strongest member of his party. He was the strongest member of the Hidden Leaf. And yes, he got stronger during that in order to catch up to the villain. But they all, reaching the final arc, they're all the strongest member of the party, right? Asta is the strongest member of his party, right? Every shonen protagonist you can think of, right? Except maybe Goku, because it depends on the arc. Goku's power scaling be all over the place. But recently, basically for the past, I don't know how many arcs, he's basically been the strongest, right? I don't know, maybe Gohan passed them. I'm not 100% sure. I haven't caught up in it. But if you really think about it, 99.9% of protagonists, they are the strongest in the party by the time they reach the final arc. And that final arc pushes them to go beyond the supervillain. Yuji is nowhere near that, right? Maki would body him. Yuta would body him. Hakari would body him, right? Kashimo, if you conclude him in the party, would body him. Gojo obviously would body him. So, like, what? Where is he going to get this strength all of a sudden? So this is where I think it might come into play, where I think that calamity is what Gojo's role is going to be at the end. I think the team is going to defeat Sukuna and defeat Kenjaku, and they'll be drained and tired and beat up, and Gojo's body will be laying somewhere because they respect Gojo. So I don't even think they're going to bury him yet. They're going to keep him there because he's the precious sensei, and almost like a Superman Returns type situation. That monster that Kenjaku builds, the kids are drained. They just did the impossible. They defeated somebody that can tear through the world, the universe itself, the fabric of existence itself. And in that moment, Gojo Satoru returns. And he says, I'll win. Anyways, it's been your voice of Premature to God. Make sure you leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I'm out.